why I did not go with the conventional loan instead of the FHA was because my community, which most new communities are going to be offering at least $15,000 towards closing costs. My community gave me 20. And so that's why I went with FHA, because if I went with conventional, I would not have gotten that extra money towards my closing costs. So I would have had to put down more, and my cost to close would have been more than the FHA. So that's why I have an FHA loan instead of a conventional, even though I could have gone the conventional route. Also, too, why did one qualify me for conventional and why did one qualify me for FHA? Because when I have a part-time job, and when you have a part-time job, it can be used as extra income. However, you had that extra job for 2 years. I had not had my extra job for 2 years. So the conventional loan was based off of the extra money that I was giving. The FHA loan was not, because they said I hadn't had that job for 2 years. How did one mortgage company just say, oh, it doesn't matter that you haven't had it for 2 years? I have no clue. He was working some magic. But just keep in mind that. Then also too, what the conventional loan officer did was, instead of taking 1% of my student loans, he actually called my student loan company with me on the phone and got the actual price that I would pay if my student loans were out of deferment, which was way less than taking 1% of my student loans. So in that case, he was actually smart, because he said, let's just call them, take your student loans out. So I did. I took my student loans out of deferment for like a quick second to see how much it would be monthly, which was cheaper than taking that 1%. So that's how one home qualified me as conventional, other did a FHA. But I still, my mortgage is still doable though. And then later on too, you can, how would you call it? You can refinance. Refinancing can be difficult, so I would watch like another video on refinancing, because there's a lot that goes into refinancing, such as equity and your interest rate. Interest rates for houses dip like in August, September when kids go back to school, and then they also dip like in the winter months. So if you're looking, and then they dip to like beginning of spring, like April. So if you're looking to buy a home, I would buy a home in those months, like August, September, April, winter time. That's when interest rates really dip. So I talked about that. Sorry, just checking my notes to see how much. Make sure I covered everything. Oh, I meant to answer this because a lot of people were asking me this. Why did I buy an older home versus a newer home? So, like I told everyone, listen to your parents. So my parents they were fully against me buying an older home. Here's why. They have had experience with older homes, and the older homes were falling apart. So even if an older home has been, how would you call it? Like reconstructed and everything, and it's been dug out, brand new, everything, the exterior of the home is still old, and you can have problems. And then also too, there's problems on warranties with like your refrigerator, your stove, your microwave, etc., that you can end up having problems with later on. Since this was my first house, my parents did not think it was a good idea for me to hold that responsibility of having to basically fix up my old home once it started having problems. They were highly against it. I did look at older homes though, but they were no more than like 5 years old, to be honest. And so the reason why I went with the new home was because all of the homes that I looked at that were at least 5 years were the same price as a newer home. So basically, like, in order to get equity in your home, you still need to wait a bit until your equity grows. And I feel like that's where a lot of these people selling their houses within 5 years were going wrong, because they were trying to sell their houses for the same price as a brand new one. So that's honestly why I went with the brand new house, just because, like I said, my parents are really strongly against me buying an older home. They just felt like I was just going to be in the rut and I was going to be highly upset trying to fix up my old home. So that's why I got a newer home. But by all means, if you want to buy an older home, I'm not against it. Just really make sure that the owner before you took care of the house. Like I would get an inspector. Even though my house is brand new, I hired an inspector because these builders like to build these homes fastest ever, and the house be falling apart. So I would say get an inspector, just to make sure that the people before you really took care of your home. So like I said, not totally against it. If you want to buy an older home, by all means, but if you're not as handy as I am, which I'm not, buy an older home. That's totally fine. Whatever is in your budget, boo. Everybody's budget is different, but I can tell you that most mortgages are between like $1,500 and like 20 something, 27-ish. So keep that in mind. At least have $1,500. But I had always had in mind when I bought my home that I was going to have tenants to rent out the rooms, because right now I don't want to live by myself. I don't know if y'all know this, but when I was in college and I first moved to the quarters from 20 Lambourne, I lived by myself for 6 months and I hated it. I was so lonely. I have anyone to talk to except for my dog. I was scared half of the time. I don't want to live alone right now. Maybe in the future, but so I bought my home with the intention of basically having tenants, which not that works for everybody. People don't like to live with other people, but I'd rather fuss and fight than live alone. It's scary. So that's just me though. But if you want to live alone, totally fine. So I also want to discuss the things that make homes more expensive. So if you're buying a new home like me, there are a lot of things that I learned that will make it super expensive. So like when you go online to like websites about homes and it be like starts from the 400s, by the time you get what you want in the house, you're probably like at 500,000 real quick. And it's because you're having upgrades, and there's also just a lot of different things that go into buying homes. So in units on townhouses, in units are always more. My old house that I was supposed to buy to be built here, it was an in unit. In units are always more expensive because everyone wants an in unit. It has extra windows. You don't have to have two people beside you. In units are always more expensive. Also, all brick. Homes are more expensive. My home is half brick, half siding. But if my whole house was all brick, the front, it would be more expensive just because brick is, it's more expensive than siding. So brick is more expensive, which what they call that is the elevation of the home. The elevation of the home means like, how is the front built? Because some people's home has steps to their front door. Some people don't. Like my house doesn't have, it has like 2 steps to my front door. Some people's houses, the elevation is also too, like how high it is on the hill, how low it is on the hill, how it sits. So when they're telling you the price starts at $300,000, they're not including $10,000-$12,000 more for having the in unit, $10,000-$12,000 more for having all brick. They're really not mentioning that, which I feel like I really wanted to mention because they try to get you. They be like, oh yeah, it's $300,000. Oh, but you got all brick and you got an in unit and you got 3 windows instead of 4, and like it's crazy. Also, wooded lots are way more expensive. Wooded lots meaning like you're facing the woods, like you have like a huge backyard. My house does not, and I actually got lucky because the type of model my house is, they're actually, in my community, they're all supposed to be wooded lots, but my row is the only exception to that. So I actually do have a big backyard because I'm not going to be facing another row of houses. So like most townhouses, I'm looking out my window now, most townhouses face the back of another townhouse, so it's almost like an alleyway, like deck to deck. My house, however, since it's not a wooded lot and all of the types of my houses are supposed to be, I don't have anybody directly behind me. I am going to have a set of houses behind me, but they're not directly behind me. They're at least going to be like a bit further that I have enough backyard. So I really got lucky with that. Also too, like some townhouses have like 4 in a set, 3 in a set, 5 in a set, 6. I have 5. So you don't want to be all the way in the middle, like especially if you're in a row of 6, because then you have like 3 houses. I mean, you have like 2 houses this way, 3 houses this way. Like, did I just do the math right? 3, 2, and then me. Oh yeah, 6. So you don't want to be exactly in the middle because you have all these houses next to each other. Even though I am not an in unit, I got a good unit because the model is next to me and no one moves into the model until like a whole nother year. But if you, like I talked about how cheap spec homes are at, if you want to buy the model home, I would totally recommend that. So in my community, they were offering to give you, I want to say it was like $2,000 every month until you could move into the model home. So basically, how fast they sell determines when the model house won't be a model house anymore. So they projected maybe in another year and a half, they would have sold out and they don't need the model anymore. So basically, they give the owner money, $2,000, like I just said, every month until you're able to move in. That's your whole down payment. You give me $2,000 so I can move in. Shit, I would have did it. I honestly would have did it if I didn't want to wait. So I would recommend that. Like I said, spec homes. I would totally recommend it. A lot of people take pride and fun in picking all this stuff out for your home. I honestly didn't really care about that. Like I said, my home had everything that I wanted. I wanted dark cabinets. I have dark cabinets. I wanted a backsplash. My backsplash is lit. It's certain stuff that I wanted. The only thing that I didn't like about my house, which I found that there's always going to be one thing that you don't really like about your house, but that you can live with. I don't like the color of my door. It's brown, and the model home house